Hey everyone, Troublesome Corsair here, and today I want to discuss more adventures with the Crumar 7. As you know, it's got a front panel here with hands-on control, and if we want to access these clavinet buttons for the pickups here, we just hold this button as a kind of a shift key, and then these regular buttons for the banks of sounds will then apply these pickups. It's got great secondary features like that for these buttons, but also for, like, say, the reverb. If it turned it on, and then if we tap it quickly, it'll change to purple, and this light up here will change to decay, and then a long press will turn that off. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's not terrible at all. And the same thing for these other lit encoders. If you see too much green on here, it doesn't show up on my camera so well, but if you just tap it, not that one, but like this one, you can make it purple and bluish, and then it'll pulse with the rate of, say, the phaser, and then slower, or it'll blink faster when we turn it up higher. The intensity is ramped up. There is speaking of this phaser, it's an effect inside the Crumar, which is 2-stage, 4-stage, 6-stage, or 8-stage phaser. But you can't access what stage it is without going on to the editor, the computer editor. So if I just turn up the brightness on my screen here, I don't know if that'll help, but let's go to the effects page, and we see here the with the slider here. Here it is. There's the 2-stage, the 4-stage, 6-stage, and 8-stage. And there's other controls for it, the offset and the feedback, which, yeah, can't really access that either, unless you assign a MIDI CC number for it. And when connecting to this, the editor wirelessly, we have the Crumar 7 here on the screen. We can set the tuning, the alternate channel, the CC send or no send kind of thing through the MIDI out, but we can view the MIDI CC map. And so what I've done is that I've taken each and every one of these, except for the ones that I don't need, for every piano sound engine in the 7, and assigned them some numbers for CC values. Now, a safe, it tells you at the bottom what numbers are duplicated. So we have a bunch of numbers down here that numbers control 2 parameters at the same time, which you want all your parameters to be their own separate numbers so that you don't, so that you can fine tune it. But since the Crumar 7 is monotone, can only do one voice at the same time, you can set a bunch of your for your grand piano the same numbers as your, like, say, your electric grand piano, because when you edit the grand piano, you'll hear the changes for the grand piano, but since the electric grand piano isn't on, then it won't mess that up. If it was bitimbre, then yeah, all the controls would need to be separated. I'll show you what I mean. So let's see. Back to those effects. Now, as you can see, the 7 here is just the lid, and I've trimmed it down to this tiny little box. And I have the line outputs going out of it, and it's controlled via USB, and then I have my headphones inside of it. The USB is coming out from a Behringer BCR2000. I think that's the name of it. BCR2000, yeah. So that's passing on the MIDI information via USB, out of the USB out from the back of it, and then into the Crumar. The Crumar has a USB, both Type A and Type B, but they'll both receive MIDI. So that works out great. However, you can also send MIDI into the BCR and pass that along to the 7 as well. So I've got a Kawaii ES110. It's the cheapest Kawaii, But even their cheapest feels better action-wise than the Fatar TR100 of the 7. At least in my opinion, anyway. So this doesn't have any USB out. It only has the traditional 5-pin MIDI out. So I'm sending that into the BCR, and that's passing it on to the 7, as well as its own controls via USB. So, with these 4 buttons here that I'm pressing, looky here, it's changing the stages of the phaser. So there's 4 settings, stage 2, 4, 6, and 8. So this group of 4 buttons here can be edited to do anything. So what I've done here is that I've assigned the stages to be CC 110. So I've assigned these 4 buttons to be 110, but I only assigned to them one value, which is of course that's all it can hold because these are buttons and not encoders. So this will be the value of 0 within the MIDI number 110. So when I press this one, it goes to stage 2, and the next one goes to stage 4, and so on. And I can go back and forth from stage 6 to stage 8. Doesn't matter which order of buttons I press it in. This one will always be stage 8, no matter in the corner here, no matter which button comes before it. So that way, I don't need the editor. I can edit things on the fly. All I need to do is turn this on in the back, press that button, and the 7 reacts. You just turn the phaser on from here, and then you can edit the depth and the rate, but now you can also edit which stage it is. And my favorite stage for the phaser is stage 8, because it's a bit more warbly and the bass comes through better, at least. But you know, maybe if you like stage 6, you can just press that button and compare the two very quickly, without having the need for connecting your iPad or your laptop or your computer and mousing around the editor. So, if you can imagine the power of these 4 buttons here, what about the rest of all these encoders? Well, let's select a piano, and we'll select the grand piano, and then we'll select edit piano. Now the grand piano, the acoustic piano, starts with the hammer cutoff and goes all the way down to the last one, which is dynamics. So I've assigned each and every one of these their own MIDI CC numbers. Now, you have MIDI CC numbers that is already in use with the Crumar, these buttons and knobs and everything. Like maybe the CC value number 7 is for volume. So if I assigned 7 to this knob here and I turned it all the way down, the volume would disappear, or I'd bring it back up. The 2 knobs would kind of talk to each other. So we don't want to control the volume, of course. We cannot assign the hammer cutoff here to CC7 because that's for volume, so it needs its own number. That means we need to know exactly which numbers are already in use and which numbers are free for us to use. And what I've done is that I've started on MIDI 65. The MIDI CC 65 is the very first number of the CC that I've got going. So I've started with 65, and I've kind of gone almost in order down to the very bottom, which ends me up at CC 84. So when I turn this first knob of the lower group of encoders here, not this topest most row, but if I start at 64 and I put it all the way up to 127, you'll see up here that the editor reacts and moves in real time here. So I put it all the way down. I'm not using the mouse, but instead I'm turning this rotary encoder, and the little LED lights will tell me exactly where I am between 0 and 127. And also, the number on the top here will flash as well, all to what value I'm currently on. Most of the properties of the sounds in the Crumar 7 is set in the middle of this range, which is 64. 64 is usually the center. That's not always the case, but of course the minimum is 0, and the uppermost is 127. So 64 is a happy middle, which is the little light at the very top. Now, These knobs are endless encoders, so they turn around and around and they spin around, and there's no hard stop to them like many other encoders that we're used to. Which is why these lights are helpful to tell us. Otherwise, if these lights weren't here, you would spin and spin and spin, and you wouldn't know where you were inside this length of values here. So if we go along to the next value here, the hammer resonance, you'll see that, oh, the hammer cutoff is moving, but now the hammer resonance is moving, and now the hammer cutoff, and it just keeps on going down and down, and I can set this all real time without a computer. The computer is connected wirelessly right now, but everything else is USB and MIDI'd up to the Crumar 7. I'm just testing this now and showing you the power of the BCR2000 when used with the 7. Now I have an editor in hardware format. So that's pretty much it. Other things to note is that the acoustic piano, the very first parameter that I've assigned here, and to the right to the very last parameter, which is like this one here, it takes up all these knobs. That would only leave me 4 more to say edit the a different sound. What if I wanted to edit the electric grand piano? But as we see here, the electric grand piano doesn't have as many things to edit. It like has half the amount, but some of these things are very similar. Here's hammer cutoff again, and hammer resonance, and hammer offset again. I've assigned these the exact same MIDI CC value as the one for the acoustic grand piano. So using the same knob here, this very same one, I'm still editing the hammer cutoff. This means that these knobs share a duplicate function, but only one function at a time. Because again, the Crumar 7 is only one voice at a time. This means is that I have the electric grand piano taken care of with all the same knobs, and I still have plenty of more knobs at the bottom row for other pianos, such as, like, say, the tines or the reeds. Now, the first one here is the type of tine piano, and then we have the attack level, which is, which one is it? Ah, that's the one. So, yeah, this one doesn't have a hammer cutoff, so you would just assign a different number and a different knob to it. But organize it on your machine here in a way that you can remember, and then you can print off strips of paper and tape them or write them or sticky them down above the knobs to tell you what does what. So there's lastly, not all of these sliders start from 0 and end at 127. There are some, like this very top one for the tines piano, that start with kind of types. So whirlish, piano bass, sweet, prepared, so dark, wannabe dyno, hard tines, mellow tone, and the default EP kind of sound. So this has 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 9 values, since we're counting 0. Now, I've assigned these 9 buttons here because this top row of encoders are also push buttons. These ones don't push in, the regular encoders down here. But this button here, these buttons, these knobs are also push buttons. So this group of 9 can be used to select what kind of electric piano it is. So I can scroll over to the default as it usually plays, but if it's kind of bright, I can select the dark one if I want with this button here. This means is that this slider here that doesn't have the full range of 0 to 127, I can divide this slider into 9 of its own buttons here. Since I'm not using these buttons for anything else, I'm not using one of these ordinary rotary encoders to control this particular setting here on the sound. That way, with just a push of a button in any order, just like I showed you with the phase stages here, I could use a knob to kind of turn and scroll through these voices, but I thought that since the maximum is only 9 values, I could divide that into its own block of buttons. And likewise, if you'll see the DX piano synth, and we'll click Edit Piano there, The only parameter that you can edit is the variation, which starts with this one here: brass, marimba, organ, E-bass, whirlish, crystal, suitcase, and electric EP. But again, the next cluster of 9 buttons on the Behringer BCR, I've edited so that we can, edit those around. Pretty cool. But if I wanted to save these buttons, I could also assign this MIDI CC value as the same one as the other one, and use these same 9 buttons for that. I think I might do that, just to save room. But just to keep them separately, I can remember that this is the time for the times, and this one is for the DX EP. And then yeah, that's should I show you one more? If we edit the effects, we have the amp. Here's the amp. Now, on here, here's the amp and drive button. If we turn it on and it's green, we can see that as I'm turning it on the actual control panel of the 7, I'm turning the drive up. This is an automatic CC value that's assigned, which is 29. Since this is already doing that, I needn't assign that CC value to any of these, since the Crumar 7 won't work without this lid anyway. If I press it fast, doesn't do anything. It only has one value here. I've got on and off. If I push it, it goes on and off. Just like when it lights up and it goes off. Okay, but what about these other things? Like, what if I wanted to change the model here on the fly, or even change the EQ for the amp and the drive? I've assigned some encoders for that. So now we can have the EQ for the amp and drive. And look, we can also change what kind of model we want with these buttons and with the encoders up top here. This is super cool, because not only does it allow us to edit it on the fly and plenty of controls at once, even though the 7 doesn't really react that well to editing things in real time. You kind of have to make your tweaks and then play, because it'll kind of distort the sound and kind of make it noisy, and there's weird artifacts with that. I don't know if that can be helped, but it's not really too much of a bother at all. But it allows us to send a MIDI controller into the BCR and send that on to the 7, all with just one little USB cable, which, thankfully, excellently, that works. Yeah, just the lid here and the little box that I made. I had to take it down to the chop saw. But that's what we've been up to. And yeah, there's just so many settings in the editor under the hood. Like for the reverb here, we can see that we can turn it off and on, but we can edit the level and the decay. But if only we had knobs that would edit the damp and the diffusion and the pre-delay and the room size and the high shelf and the low shelf. Well, not to fear, because we can edit those things now. Look at that. Of course, it's a little bit laggy, but it's just trying to catch up to the precise value that I'm setting it at. And then there's the damp. See how I've assigned the damp to MIDI CC 111? Then all I have to do is assign, if I press edit here and twist the knob here, then I can go through the type of message, the channel that is transceived on, which MIDI CC value that I should set it to, which is 111, what the range is, if it's 0 to 170, 127 or less than that, what kind of mode I want the lights to turn in, so if it spreads out or starts at the middle or should go into the negatives, and that only works with this top row of faders. But I have a group of, these are multi-purpose faders and push buttons as well, as we showed you before, and without scrolling into a different preset for anything, I have enough to cover the entire 7 engine with just one preset from the Behringer BCR2000. So that, I think, should wrap it up for this one. Rambled on long enough, nearly 20 minutes. Oh boy, I'll have a time uploading this one. I better start at midnight. Thank you all, and tune in next time for another exciting installment of Upload Thursday.